Welcome to Chris Parkin Shooting Sports. A couple of months ago I did a video looking at some of the options and specifications and things you might look for in a target shooting scope for different disciplines, different rifles, and I thought I'd do the same for stalking scopes. Now, Sportsman Gun Centre have very generously sent me an array of optics from their ranges which give me examples of things to talk about. This isn't an exhaustive list in any way, shape or form, because there are many specifications that sort of fill gaps between these things, but it gives me an opportunity to sort of look at some of the options, some of the variables and things you might look at for your rifle scope, for your rifle. Now, one of the first things to talk about is the size of a stalking rifle. You know, generally speaking, it's got to be of stalking caliber, it's going to be stalking legal, so generally speaking that's going to mean you're going to have a fairly generous action size over which to mount a rifle scope. Now, most rifle scopes designs are actually based around that sort of generic size, so it's only when you talk about very small or very large rifles, rifle scopes can be a bit of an unusual fit, but generally speaking most of the scopes are going to fit most of the stalking appropriate rifles. Let's have a look at the very sort of starting level here. We've got Crimson Trace. This is a 3 to 9 by 40 scope. Now, some people say the details, what do they mean? 3 to 9 by 40, right? 3 means it's a minimum 3 times magnification. To 9 means it goes up to 9 times magnification. And by 40 or X40 means it's got a 40mm objective lens. So magnification here is 3 at that end and 9 at that end, and that is what magnifies your image for you to shoot appropriately. Now, this scope is what you call not adjustable for parallax, so there is no adjustable objective, there is no side parallax dial. A scope like this will generally be parallax free at 100 yards, and that means that you can use any magnification setting you like at 100 yards and you won't see any kind of movement or of the reticle or differential movement between the relative images of the reticle and the target. Now, of course, an adjustable objective scope adds price, but we'll look at that a little bit more later, and then we move into the side focus elements as well. The crucial details of this are, we've got an eyepiece here which has got fast focus on it. We don't generally see the slow focus eyepieces these days, and the fast focus basically means that when you're looking at that 100 yards plus, you're guaranteed to get an absolutely crystal clear reticle picture, and you do that by looking through the optic and looking into infinity and adjusting this until the reticle gives you a sharp picture. I'll put a link to a video about how to do that for any rifle scope below. Now, the tube size on this is a 1-inch tube. That depends on what rings you're going to use, so that's a critical factor you need to know about. 30mm rings can use spacers, but 1-inch rings are better. 25.4mm is 1 inch. Now, in terms of adjustment, this has got dials underneath caps, and these are on here quarter MOA clicks, or quarter minute of angle, or quarter inch at 100 yards approximately, and that is for zeroing in, set it up, maybe go for 125, 150 meter zero, sort of point blank, where you might be shooting your deer species, and there you go, set up. It's pretty much set it up, point it, shoot it, and it's nothing more complicated than that. Scopes like this last pretty much forever, and you get a great daylight picture through the 1-inch tube, a nice crisp reticle, and it's just delightfully simple to use in a hunting scenario. Without having to mess around with additional knobs, features, functions, you can just point, shoot, and it's an easy life. An entry-level scope like this might come with stretch over eye caps. These just fit on the front and the back here, and of course all the optics are fully multi-coated. It's waterproof, you get warranties, and these things are pretty much assured easy to use things. You're not going to have a problem with them, but you might want more features and functions. Let's look at the next scope now. These aren't in specific order, but I've just sort of generally formulated them together. This is a perfect example of a scope with a greater size objective lens. Now, that objective lens has gone up to 56mm in diameter. Now, believe it or not, 56 doesn't sound a lot more than a 50, which of course most of these are, but that actually gives you 25% more lens area for light to enter that tube and be projected through the scope and into your eye. Again, the caps here, these are rubberized, they fit over the ends, they stretch into place. These are quieter in use rather than the sort of noisier plastic ones like these. But again, you can put flip-up eye caps on things like this anyway. Now, 8x56, that's 8 times magnification, 56mm objective lens. It's fixed magnification, but we've got at the back here, fast focus eyepiece as usual, and we've got a lovely sharp reticle. These give you some of the most beautiful pictures because optically they're very simple. They have fewer lens packages in the tube, so there's fewer lenses for the light to transmit through. That often gives you a better image quality and better light transmission as well. Now, a scope like this is perfect for low light use, but of course 8 times magnification might not be optimum for very close quarters, but it's a great scope for hill stalking, things like that, because 8 times magnification on something like a red deer is plenty at the realistic distances you're likely to shoot them, and of course you're going to have the image transmission, great picture quality into poor light. Now, we add one feature here that we didn't see on the first scope, and that is an illuminated reticle. This has got multi-stage illumination, and this one will bring up the reticle in red, and you can use that to contrast better with your picture to make sure you're getting the best shot possible. Also, we've got cap dials for adjustment, no great complication, but you can feel the quality is just a little bit higher up on a scope, which compared to the first one at £259, this one is now £359, and of course, mechanically it's simpler, but perhaps that money's being spent on the optics within and also the illumination system. So again, it comes down to what you need to choose, what you need to look at for your rifle. Let's pop this one down. Rubber lens caps like this are quite handy actually, because you can often twist those round the tube a couple of times, latch them in place, and even when you flip them off the sides, it means they won't drop off the rifle completely. Right, now let's move to the third scope in this sequence. We're back to Crimson Trace here, but we've got some different features again. Now, it's a 30mm tube, we've seen that before. We've seen adjustable magnification, we've seen that before. We've seen the fast focus eyepiece, nothing unusual there. And we've got cap dials for windage and elevation setup and zero. You can feel the clicks are a little bit more tactile. That means you don't necessarily have to be looking directly at them to feel exactly how many clicks you've added if you need to do anything like that when you're zeroing. But again, it's not kind of a tall multi-dialing turret to adjust for long-range shooting capability. It's a 50mm front end, so you've got lots of light coming in. Again, not quite as big as the 56. This one is adjustable zoom. It's got great versatility because it's a 4:16, so you've got broader field of view down at 4 times, more precision at 16 times. And generally, if you're carrying these on 4 power, you've got immediate pointability, and you're not going to have problems finding your target with minimal field of view. Now, the feature we're adding here is we've got parallax adjustability. Now, the parallax adjustability on this goes down below 50 yards and it goes all the way out to infinity. And what that means is you can use whatever magnification you like all the way down to 50 yards. And you can set that up to adjust to get the focus and parallax correct so that there's no differential movement between the reticle and the image. And by differential movement, I mean when the rifle is absolutely stationary and your parallax is correct, if your eye moves even slightly, the reticle and image should stay in perfect synchronization. They shouldn't move relative to one another. If the parallax is incorrectly set, the rifle is stationary and your eye moves slightly, you'll see the reticle move relative to the image. That means the parallax isn't correct. Now, of course, that also ties in with the fact the image will not be in perfect focus. So parallax control, either via an adjustable objective or the side focusing dial here, means you're going to get that crisp image regardless of magnification setting. But you'll notice we've kind of just lost a feature again. We're back down to no illumination control. So that might be something you want to combine and have all those features and functionality, because different scopes will offer you different combinations of all these things. And you might want few of them, you might want all of them. And of course that will reflect on the price quality relationship you're going to be paying for. Now, this scope is significantly more expensive at £1,063 because you're combining a lot more mechanical adjustability with the zoom, with the actual side focus, and all those great optics inside. And the reticle is also a little bit more complicated. It gives you some hash marks for aiming over, dialing around the image, but it's also still in the second focal plane. Now, generally speaking, most hunting scopes will have a second focal plane reticle, but that is not exclusive, and personal choice comes into that. By second focal plane, I mean that when you zoom up or down, although the image will get larger or smaller, the reticle will appear exactly the same size. And that does mean if you've got a reticle with additional hash marks and aim-offs, that those have different subtensions depending on what magnification setting you're at. So if you do start using them, you need to be aware of what magnification you're set on. The advantage of a first focal plane scope is that because the reticle appears to get larger and smaller in correlation with the zoom up and down, that those subtensions from the reticle stay identical regardless of magnification setting. Now, we're going to move on to element optics here. This is the Element Helix HD 2:16 by 50. This brings in some different numbers. So 2 to 16 magnification, 2 times 8 is 16. That will mean it's got an 8 times zoom ratio or an 8 times erector tube. That combines the fact that at 2 power you've got massive field of view, and at 16 power you've got a lot of magnification for precision in shot aiming. This one comes with flip-up eye cups, which makes it a great addition, and these are clear too, so you can see through them in an emergency if you don't have time or have forgotten to flip them out of place, but they will keep rainwater and things like that off your lens. All these scopes are waterproof, they've all got warranties and guarantees, and they've all got multi-coated lenses, remember. Again, here we've got capped dials. That's for zeroing, no problem, and nice solid clicks again. You can actually have the HDLR version of this scope, which has a taller turret, and that is great if you are doing some multi-distance shooting, but we're talking deer stalking, which might not necessarily mean multi-distance shooting. It depends on your preferences. In terms of functions on here, we've got the fast focus reticle at the back as normal. That happens to be under the eye cap there. 30mm tube, adjustable magnification, and this one also comes with a throw lever. Now the throw lever is not in at the moment, but a throw lever is generally a small aluminium peg, screws in there, and it just makes it a little bit quicker to flip the zoom up and down if you don't want to grab the whole reticle like that. And especially when you're in a low profile situation, you might want to do that because deer can be watching you and they can see the tiniest movement, and it might be just a case of moving that with your fingertip on the throw lever rather than bringing your hand over the top, which could be enough to shock those deer and scare them off. Now, in terms of further functionality, this one combines side focus, parallax control here. That goes all the way down to 10 meters. That means you can use full magnification, extremely close range. Now, on a deer stalking scope, that's probably not going to be something you need to use, but it does reflect on the fact this rifle scope is very versatile and could be used on an air rifle or rimfire at extremely short distances as well. You'll have probably seen me talk about that in many of my other reviews. And of course here on the very end we've got illumination control. The battery fits under the cap here. Most of them use a CR2032 battery, and we've got that great capability now of having that reticle illuminate in poor light conditions, which gives us greater contrast. This scope is approximately half the price of the Crimson Trace, yet it seems to have more functionality. So you have to bear in mind that the money may have been spent on additional quality in the mechanics, material specification, and of course the lenses themselves. But generally speaking, you're going to find it's a diminishing returns in terms of what money you spend, because the last 5% of capability can come with the last £1,000 you spend on optic, and up to sort of £500 you're going to see a lot of functionality come in. But when you do add that extra £2,000 on top, you'll see that functionality combined with the very finest of optical quality, image resolution, contrast, light transmission, etc. Everything is a compromise, and you have to think about what you are paying for. But the number one thing to do is get the scope in your hands and look through it in probable light conditions you're going to be using it, and analyse all the functions and features and think, what do I need, what do you need for your requirements? Now, I'm not going to talk about some of those super expensive scopes because I want to look at the range of optics you can have and sort of the versatility of things you can do. These two scopes here are sort of fit into the same category because both these scopes have got similar 1:8 by 24 specification. Now again, 1 times magnification doesn't sound very good, but were you to be combining a scope for deer stalking with maybe trips into Europe for driven boar shooting, that 1 power would be superb because you're going to shoot most of your moving game on 1, 1.5, maybe 2 power, and of course you can then still zoom all the way up to 8 times if you want to take longer shots onto deer that are further out in the field. I've been on many wild boar trips where the boar are close in between sort of 20 and 50 meters, and you do need that low power all the way down. But it can be frustrating with only a red dot sight if there are deer at 150, 175 meters away that you can't take with a red dot sight easily. But of course you can dial up, take that precision shot on that further target, and you're not really at any detriment for having a smaller power at the low end of the scope. Some people might say that the small objective is a massive detriment. Now, there is a factor about that, but it gives you more field of view from your opposing eye, and it also means that you've got the compact nature of the scope on a fast handling rifle. You're generally going to be using a scope like this in good light, so that absolute twilight capability isn't a factor on a driven hunt. A lot of scopes like this do get combined with AR-15s, CQB rifles, things like that, and some of them are designed around that concept, and that's really noticeable in the reticle types. But generally speaking, you can either have capped dials or adjustable external turrets, and the functionality and all the features are just the same. It's just different numbers that are involved in terms of the magnification level. So like I said, 1:8 with a 24mm objective lens, well that 24mm 34mm objective lens is significantly smaller than a 40 or a 56 or a 50. So just bear these things in mind. Everything is done at some form of compromise. Engineering and optical or mechanical has compromised from start to finish in terms of what you pay, what you get, but the specifications themselves don't cheat you. You're free to choose what you want. And of course, in a 1:8 means this is an 8 times magnification ratio and 8 times your rectitude. So you can zoom these up to big numbers compared to what you start with. And okay, this is a Nightforce NX8. This is a far more expensive. The primary arms here is £503. The similar specification Nightforce is 2007 because the NX8 is a premium optical unit. Now, of course, Nightforce is a superb name in the optical world, and there are many different specifications of scope in the NX8 range. You could go for something like the 2.5 to 20 times magnification with a 50mm front end, and that looks a lot more like a regular daytime stalking scope or something for precision use at longer range. You can also specify different options, like you can have minutes of angle, milliradians on the turrets. You can also have different reticles, first or second focal plane choices. So really, the sky is the limit. The last thing to remember is that a lot of these numbers have a key variable in them, and that's 7. So if you look at an 8 by 56, that is actually, well, 7 times 8 is 56. Why is that number 7 there? Well, the number 7 is there because the human eyeball pupil can open to about 7mm maximum, and because of the way the light transmission works, generally the exit pupil of the scope cannot be bigger than 7mm because there's just no point, because that's how big your eye is ever going to get in perfect conditions. So that is why the number 7 is key. Right, I hope you enjoyed that little video. If you've got any questions, please send them in, but in the meantime, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and click the notification bell and keep track of the regular uploads. If you want to go all the way through to the end of the video, there are links to tickets to the 2025 British Shooting Show at the NEC in Birmingham, and that's on the 14th to the 16th of February. Right, thank you for watching. Bye for now.